Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name's Luke, and I am joined for the first time guest on the show, Sam, the Last Pharaoh, Wahby. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Luke, and thank you for having me, man. It's an honor. It's my first interview, so this is really cool.
Oh, that's fantastic. I am thrilled that this is your first interview. I got to be cage side and watch you make your amateur MMA debut back in August of 21 at Flood City Fight Night 1, which was 247. And you had a fantastic knockout in the third round. We're going to start there. Let's kind of break down your debut. Then we got to get to the big news of what's happening in a week, which is why hopefully people are watching this and getting excited about your opportunity at Brawl in the Burgh 12. But let's rewind it. You're making your debut at the young age of 32 as far as MMA goes, and you get out to Flood City Fight Night. So what led you into MMA? I wouldn't say late in life, but maybe later than some people do. And what led you to take your debut?
So basically, I've been doing martial arts like my whole life, just to kind of keep myself out of trouble growing up, keep myself in shape. It's always been like a really awesome and fun hobby. And I've always been a fan of UFC. Like I have UFC 1 back at my parents' like storage somewhere. So like I always been a huge fan. And I know it's like a generic answer, but like Bruce Lee's always been a big inspiration. The Ninja Turtles. So like I always kind of been around martial arts. And I want to say like my mid-20s, I really just for some reason got in my head that like I really just want to try and compete. Go for amateur, eventually pro, but yeah.
All right, well, that took us right up. Thanks for explaining that, and I'm glad for a lot of people, like you said, and including yourself. I'm glad that martial arts, and there's many great ones out there, and also mixed martial arts, do give people that otherwise might get in trouble a place to belong, a place to connect, and also sort of that discipline and that training that can be absolutely fantastic. So you kind of walk us through that fight. Third round knockout means that you had first 2 rounds. So let's talk about that. How were the first 2 rounds for you? Obviously, to go from training to your first fight ever, what was that first round like for you? That 2 minutes where you really were an amateur MMA fighter. What was that like for you before we ever get to the knockout?
Oh, it was super nerve-wracking, actually. It was super nerve-wracking. I almost wore myself out, honestly, in the first round. I was just trying to go for it. But after the first round, though, I kind of just got into like my flow state, kind of just feeling him out, because he was pretty tall guy, so pretty lengthy. So I really had to watch myself as I was pressuring him. And eventually I just caught a rhythm and boom.
Well, yeah, I'm actually looking at him. He is very lanky. He's 6'4", young guy, and probably to make your win even more significant is it was his debut and your debut. So debut versus debut. He has since knocked out his next opponent in round 1. And obviously hats off to him, because I think it's always a good thing when you fought an opponent, win or loss, really, for that opponent to have a great career. Because if you beat them, it means that that's a valuable win. And if you lose to an opponent and they go on and have a great career, that means it was a good loss. So it really comes down to, I think you've seen that when you watch UFC as much as you do, unless they're the real drama. Most fighters in the UFC, immediately after the fight, there's that respect because they are helping each other. Win or loss only happens with the other person. So hats off to Paul Dotson for giving you a great first fight. And he was the taller fighter. What did you learn from that? Obviously, you said you kind of found your rhythm, got a combo, put him away. Did that help sort of get that flow state going for you?
Yeah, like I said, after the second round, as like my nerves kind of calmed and everything like that, that's when I kind of just got in that flow state. And like I said, just kind of, work some setups, some feints, see some reactions, and then took it from there. And then, yeah, I would say like mid-second round, I really started connecting on especially that overhand. And that's what finished the fight in the third round. So.
I'm thrilled to hear that. Now let's get to the new news. You're on the show. We are exactly a week away from Brawl in the Burgh 12, which has been, if anybody's following Pittsburgh regional MMA, it's been a huge card since they announced it, because it's going to be at the Meadows Casino. The first time they've been at the Meadows Casino, and they already have a very stacked card. I've been covering it. I'm super excited. And then just yesterday, 8 days before the fight, they announced you. You were impressive in your debut. Obviously, we've already talked about that. And you got matched a week before the fight. Here you are now, 7 days away, July 9th, Brawl in the Burgh 12 for 247 Fighting Championships at the Meadows Casino in Canonsburg, which is just going to be absolutely fantastic, incredible, all those things. Let's walk through that. When did you first try to get on this card? Do you stay ready so you don't have to get ready? That old mantra, kind of what's the plan of you taking a fight 8 days before the fight actually happens? And let's talk about that.
Well, actually, I was already in a camp for a fight that was supposed to happen this past week. And so I was pretty much already almost at my peak. So I was in good shape. And Jim hit me up. Hit up my coach Scott about a matchup, and I had to take it since the other one didn't fall through. And to be honest, I love fighting for 247. I mean, like everything about them, production and everything, like it's awesome promotion. So I was super excited to take the advantage, especially now that they're doing their first event at the casino, which is pretty lit. So.
Well, you gave a little reference there to Jim Mooney, the matchmaker for 247, one of my close buddies. He's an incredible guy. He took over, I think, on fight 3. And Liam Morris had done a great job before that. Being a matchmaker at any level of MMA is very challenging. And in some ways, being an amateur matchmaker is harder. I'm not offending any matchmakers out there. They all do a hard job. It's tough. But amateur MMA, just like you pointed out, because there's no pro contracts, because there's no way to guarantee money and those type of things that happen at the pro level, exactly what you experienced. You might have wanted to get on Brawl in the Burgh 12, but you already had a match, you already had a fight at a different promotion, and it falls through. And in the amateur ranks, that seems to happen. Literally, we were at a fight, the last fight I covered for 247, an amateur fighter just walked out. He had weighed in, everything was fine, everything was good. And about 3 hours before the fight, he was physically there. I'd interviewed him already, talked to him while he was warming up, and he just walked out. We have no idea why he left, but there's no, it was terrible for his opponent, but it was one of those things where that's an amateur fight. Like, it's really hard. And obviously, I'm not saying that should happen, that shouldn't happen. And we want amateur fighters like you who are mature and have that mindset that this is going towards pro. Like you said, that amateur fighting is the idea of figuring out your weight class, which we'll talk about here in a second, figuring out your style. There are some limitations of what you can and can't do, but that's to develop somebody's skill set before it becomes, permanent on your record. So very exciting stuff. And I would say it really does show what you said about 247. It's important that when you fought on a promotion and you like the production value, you like the people, you like how it works, to kind of keep that in the back of your mind when you can jump on. So all great stuff there. In the almost a year, 11 months, 10 months since your fight, where have you been training? You mentioned Coach Scott. So let's talk a little bit about your training, and what have you been, without giving details away, what have you been looking to improve in your game?
So I'm training out of Deep Water Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Harrisburg, and under Coach Cameron and Coach Scott, also Coach Ray, and basically just sharpening the tools, getting better at where I see, some weakness, and just trying to be the best overall around martial artist that I could be.
And that's really what real MMA training, whether it's amateur, whether it's for fun, whether it's pro, is. It's getting better in all areas. You might have a favorite, you might have something that you're better at, but one thing I really like about your mindset is, just because you won your first fight in impressive knockout fashion doesn't mean you go back to that well. I don't know if this name, Big Country, Roy Nelson means anything to you. We're going back a decade. The guy was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, really, really good at the heavyweight division, and probably could have had a better career, at least in the UFC. In the IFL, he won with submissions. He had an incredible overhand. Nobody is taking away his incredible right overhand. But my goodness, he had entire fights where he wouldn't do anything else but throw the overhand. And I love big country Roy Nelson. It's his career. He can do what he wants. He was entertaining. I think he was a fan favorite. But it's one of those things where he was incredible. He knocked out some of the best guys. He broke Stefan Struve's jaw. I mean, it's incredible stuff. But it's interesting that a well-rounded mixed martial artist at that level was unwilling to take some fights to other areas where he is skilled, even though he might have actually won fights that otherwise he lost. So I think the humility of you to say that you're training all areas, you're not just saying, well, I knocked the first guy out, I'm just going to do that every time. It's important to always have all aspects of MMA. We've even seen this in the heavyweight division, which I guess my brain's on right now, with Francis Ngannou, where his last fight against the striker, he took him down and grappled and wrestled that he had never done. He was never trained in that. Now, of course, he's been training it as the heavyweight champion of the world, who knocked out Stipe, who literally is the hardest hitting guy ever in the UFC. He couldn't even just rely on that. And I think a lot of that, he gives a lot of credit to the first Stipe fight when he thought he was just going to sledgehammer them after knocking out Overeem. He just figured, I'm going to knock him out. And he talked very honestly and openly about how he had never been just laid on like that and just pulled down over and over and over again, and was just completely exhausted. And that was a kind of a bad performance. So I love the fact that you're training all aspects before MMA, because you mentioned that you started watching UFC. What martial arts had you trained, or are you truly off the couch? You watched MMA and then you started training, or did you have something before MMA?
Like I said, I've been like in and out of martial arts my whole life. Like I've done karate, I've done boxing since like high school. That was like 2004. I've done my first MMA class, like official MMA class, was when I was like 18. So like I've been around martial arts my whole life. I would say boxing was probably my like first love when it came to combat sports.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And then I found out about Muay Thai, and I was like, oof, this is a whole different world. But yeah, I would say boxing is definitely my first love.
Well, that makes a lot of sense given your love for boxing. And Muay Thai is, they talk about it being the sport of 8 limbs. And that's 2 elbows, 2 knees, 2 fists, and 2 feet. And it's pretty fantastic when you see high-level Muay Thai. Probably right now in the UFC, the 185-pound champ is really showing what a high level. He's more kickboxing than even Muay Thai, meaning that in kickboxing they can knee, but they don't have an unlimited plum. They only usually have one glory rule type thing. What do you want to see out of yourself? You're coming in from Harrisburg. You're coming in to Cannonsburg, the western side, just under Pennsylvania, just under Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So you're making a long trip, 4 hours, 4.5 hours, in under a week. What do you want to see from yourself come July 9th?
I mean, good results. Hopefully a finish, but I don't want to make any predictions. I'm just gonna do my game plan, get in my flow state, and most importantly, have fun out there, honestly.
Well, I think this has been an incredible first interview. I got to interview you in the cage after your debut win, working there for 247, but it's always nice to have kind of this more relaxed, because the in-cage interviews, minute and a half, you're hot and sweaty and you were all excited about your first win. So it's really great to kind of sit down with you a little bit, learn about your last fight, learn about this upcoming fight. Hats off to you, your gym, your trainers, everybody being willing to take this fight in a week. And also, like we said, Jim Mooney, the other matchmakers for 247, Ryan Middleton, the owner of 247. It's a big undertaking to run 247. They do a great job. Can't wait to see you in person in a week. And Are you taking this at 85 or where's the weight category? Because at your height of 5'10", are you aiming for 170 at some point? What's the game plan going forward?
Oh no, this fight's for 170.
Oh,
Yeah. Yep. So
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, I'm dropping down because last time when I fought at 185, I came under. So, and I kind of knew 170 was my weight class anyway. So it's where I'm sticking to right now.
Well, I think, I think that's another big part of amateur MMA. Sometimes we talk a little bit too much about weight classes, although it is really a big deal. And I think amateur is the place to figure it out. You came in, your official weight at the first fight was 182.5. In a way, as a former coach, that's smart. That means you didn't have a weight cut issue on your first fight. You came in under, sure, there's some disadvantages. You're giving up size, you're giving up weight. However, some debut amateurs put so much focus on weight cutting that it kind of overwhelms everything else. It's great. Now that you've had a win, it sounds like you already had the game plan of moving down to 170. So it wasn't a surprise. I think at the 5'10" range, that's a great weight class. We'll kind of have to see how it goes. And I'm thinking about, he's fighting tonight, actually. I'm thinking about Cowboy Don Cerrone, who's 6'1" and has fought all the way down at 155, which, yeah, and there has been times he's looked incredible, but in his title fight versus RDA, he looked bad. He looked weak to the stomach. Now, he is a legend. He could knock me out, choke me out. I know he is an absolute beast. So the most wins in the UFC, the most finishes in the UFC, one of the most bonuses in the UFC, is an absolute stud. It's just that even he at 155, he could make the weight, but it left his body open to the knees and to the body shots. And so then we saw him have a resurgent at 170, although I think he's again fighting at 55. So there is kind of a balance there. Thanks so much, Sam. The Last Pharaoh is a great nickname. I can't wait to announce you and kind of talk about you on the pay-per-view. As a reminder for your fans, since you are from Harrisburg, if they want the pay-per-view, which I think will be great, it's going to be a great event, 247fighting.com. 247fighting.com is the website to get that. And hopefully some people will be making the trip with you. But if they can't, I think the pay-per-view is going to be exciting. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you for having me, man.
You got it. You've been listening to The Last Pharaoh, Sam Wahby. See him live in action or on pay-per-view. July 9th, Brawl in the Burgh 12. 247 Fighting Championships at the Meadows. See you then.
So.